Mary Poppins was released in 1964 by Walt Disney Pictures.
I'm sorry, I have something in my eye.
Mary Poppins was released in 1964 by Walt Disney Studios, and it was nominated for 13 Academy Awards, but it won 5. It stars Julie Andrews, Dick Van Dyke, Donald Tomlinson. David him. I probably saw the first time when I was like 4.
I had just turned 3. It was the first movie that I personally owned.
My first exposure to Mary Poppins on a screen, really, was the Disney sing-along. We had a video where it was Step in Time, and I was just like, who are all these scary people dancing
But they're
on?
so fun.
They are, but they're dressed in black and they're dirty, so it's a little creepy.
So the story of Mary Poppins follows the Banks family, and I guess they're your stereotypical upper-middle-class English family of 1910.
Oh, I hope not.
They're fairly wealthy. Mr. Banks has a good job. They have servants. Mrs. Banks does nothing except for fight for the vote, I guess.
But they go through nannies more often than I go through socks.
Yes. I think it was 4 nannies in the last month, and that's where Mary Poppins comes in. Mr. Banks writes a very strict request for a nanny. He wants a general, and the kids want someone who will love them, basically. And along comes Mary Poppins, and lo and behold, she really meets the requirements for both.
Yeah. Sorry. So they go on these string of adventures with Mary Poppins and the children, and sometimes Bert the Chimney Sweep and Dick Van Dyke's spot-on Cockney accent. That's where a lot of the fun music and great effects come in.
Yeah.
But then Mr. Banks kind of steps in at one point, and he's like, oh no, this isn't what a nanny should be like. And through reverse psychology, Mary Poppins tricks him into spending time with his kids.
And he is so upset about it, but then kind of starts to feel a little bit of pride of, my kids want to spend time with me, that kind of thing. Through Mary Poppins' presence, the Banks family becomes a more loving, a more, I want to say, unified family.
Definitely.
At the beginning, they're all kind of doing their own thing, and it's like they each have their own secret life, that kind of thing. But at the end...
Mrs. Banks is secretly Batman. She brings them all together, and Mary Poppins gets on her
magic umbrella,
Hogwarts umbrella, and flies
leaves
away, seemingly never to return. So having been released in the mid-60s, this movie is really, really a treat to watch from a visual perspective. There's a lot of blue screen, but a lot of practical effects too. It's crazy.
And even the blue screen, as much as it's noticeable with a Blu-ray, as a kid,
VHS.
No idea.
There's the scene where Mary Poppins goes through her carpet bag, and she just keeps pulling stuff out of it. I just remember watching it as a kid going, how did they do this?
Julie Andrews did a really good job. It's less the movie trick and more her response in that situation that sells that specific trick. And that's really the case all along. They're interacting with animation or, something that's not really there. And these actors wouldn't have been used to that. And yet it's spot on. I don't know if that's the actors or the animators.
Bert the Chimney Sweep sweeps down and grabs this bouquet of colorful flowers and hands it to Mary Poppins. And when she goes to sniff it, it turns into butterflies. And the look that these two have on their faces, it's like you believe that they were actually working with something. Robert and Richard Sherman's, the Sherman Brothers music. There are so many times where we're watching it and we're like, oh, this is my favorite song. And then
the next song starts.
You're like, oh wait, I forgot.
But then also lyrics and meaning within the story, they're beautiful too.
What's your favorite song? It's tough.
Yeah.
It's so
As
tough.
a kid, it was Sister Suffragette, because I thought that was hysterical when she showed her knees.
Stop. Step in Time or Jolly Holiday, just because it's so involved and so high energy.
I think my favorite is still Jolly Holiday. It's actually the ringtone on my phone for when you call.
I didn't know.
Yes. I was about to say the most intriguing character is Mr. Banks. He wants to provide for his family. You can tell he loves them, but he doesn't know how.
He is under the impression that, an English father comes home after a long days of work, pats his children on the head and sends them off the bed, and
that's loving your family.
Yeah, so he's basically following society's guide to being a good father.
As a kid, I knew I loved Mary Poppins, but I didn't realize that she was fun. I thought she was just magic. But the fun is there. It's subtle. It's more in her responses to other people. But it makes her a really fun character.
Yeah. Bert is absolutely every child's highlight to this movie. He is so much fun, has so much energy. Dick Van Dyke steals the show, and any scene that he's in, especially when he pulls his pants down, which sounds really weird out of context, and dances with a bunch of penguins. It's actually kind of surprising because he's the one that kind of hits home the theme of the movie. Mr. Banks is kind of at his wit's end, and through a little bit of song, Bert the chimney sweep, on the bottom of the
bottommost
rung, and Mr. Banks is all the way up here. He's the one that's kind of telling him, hey, your kids love you so much. And really, he even tells the kids, your father loves you so much. So
it's strange because he's the comedy of the movie, and yet the most heartfelt moments of the movie
come from Dick Van Dyke.
Mary Poppins starts the process, but he finishes it.
Jane and Michael, they're very adorable to watch.
Absolutely.
For child actors, they do a good job. There are a few times where you're like, oh, okay, whatever. But what I kind of wished happened was that there was a little bit more of a rebellious side to Jane and Michael. The nannies introduced them as, oh, you don't need a nanny, you need a zookeeper. Oh, these children must be horrible. They pull pranks on their nannies. And as soon as Mary Poppins arrives, they're just children.
They're clearly not sure what to do with her, and yet in one song she's won them over. We never see that rebellious prankster side again.
Yeah.
They're just model little children for her.
I think the biggest takeaway, at least for us as a family, is no matter how great of a nanny comes your way, nobody can replace your parents. And I think that's ultimately what this movie is about. Because Jane and Michael, they come at the beginning and they go to their mom. Well, their mom is busy fighting for women's rights. And they go to their dad. Their dad is too busy being an English gentleman. When Mary Poppins comes around, they kind of find a mom or parental figure in her.
And yet she's not the kind of person to give them love.
No.
She even says, I wouldn't be a good nanny if I loved every child. She just gives them attention, and they have fun with her. And those are the most fun parts of the movie.
But then when the wind changes and Mary Poppins tells the kids, hey, I'm leaving forever, bye, the kids are in tears and they're crying, don't leave us, we love you, don't you love us? On their way downstairs, they see their dad, and dad's mended their broken kite, and they don't even turn around and look at Mary Poppins for the rest of the movie. The whole last couple of minutes are dedicated to a really fun song.
Yeah.
And they're just having fun as a family.
Yeah, and as many amazing magical adventures as they went on with Mary Poppins, and as fun as those are for the viewer, the moment that we see Jane and Michael the most happy is when they're with their family.
Yeah, with
just
their parents.
Flying a kite, which is a simple, basic activity.
Right.
But they know they're loved, and you can see that.
So no matter how perfect a nanny might be, no one can measure up to involved parents. So if you haven't seen it, definitely watch it. And if you have seen it, but it's been a month, you should watch it again.
It's a movie.
You can never get tired of.
Seriously, though, it's a movie that every time you see it, you realize there's more depth or more emotion, another character to explore.
Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you next time when we go back to the movies.